you're aware that us old people, our memories are a little cloudy.
Yes,
and
yes.
foggy.
You don't need to know exact dates or anything like that. Just feelings about when you were in high school, when you were in the service, and the things you did. So I'm looking at high school right here.
Okay, we're rolling.
Okay. This is an interview at Delmar Place Residence, Delmar, New York. It is the 28th of February, 2006. It is 1 p.m. Interviewers are Wayne Clark and Mike Russert. Could you give me your full name, date of birth, and place of birth, please?
My full name, Warren Edward Cook. I was born in Brocton, Massachusetts, June the 21st, 1926.
Okay. What was your educational background prior to entering service?
Prior to,
Yes, sir.
well, I enlisted in the U.S. Naval Reserve in January of my senior year in high school, after having worked the previous summer building the USS Wasp in Quincy, Massachusetts. Went back to high school, one of the few males left in my class because the rest had either been drafted or had joined. 3 of us joined the V5 program in our senior year. Our first formal orders were to return to high school and complete high school in the top third of our class, which was no problem because there wasn't somebody left there anyway. Graduated on a Friday night, and I was on active duty Monday morning.
Now, could you tell us, working on the Wasp, what did you do on the Wasp?
What did I do?
Yes, sir.
I was a welder.
And
They had a peculiar way of doing things.
School.
Pardon me?
Between your junior and senior year in high
Yeah,
school?
the year before I worked in an attack factory, which was doesn't contribute to the war effort, but when the Japs had already sunk the Wasp, and we were building the second Wasp, which they ultimately sunk that one too. But you asked you something about how they handle it. If you were over 6 foot tall, which I was at the time, you were assigned to the inner bottoms. Inner bottoms was welding aluminum welding, and a 2 foot by 2 foot by 4 foot plate box in the inner bottoms, in the bottoms, all day. Twice a day you could come out to see all those little midgets running around on the flight deck. They didn't have to go down in the inner bottoms. And I did that for that whole summer between my junior and senior year. Was welding in the inner bottoms.
Where did you learn how to weld? Did you learn on the job?
They taught me, right, yeah, okay. They had a class, I don't know, I think they spent all the 20 minutes, maybe it was half an hour teaching me. You don't have to be any, it's not like fight play.
Now, where was this? In the Navy Yard in Boston?
Quincy, Massachusetts. I forget the name of the I forget the name of the company, but they're one of the big steel companies. Quincy, Mass. Had the docks. Yeah, there was 4 or 5 ships being built at that time. Yeah.
How many hours a day did you work?
Oh, I don't recall. It was. I don't recall. I was picked. We lived about 20-25 miles south of there. 4 or 5 of us carpooled. I remember even in the summertime, when the sun came up early, it was still kind of dark when I got there, and when I left at night, it was bright enough. But I don't know. It must have been 10 hours or more. There was nothing to work long hours back when there was a war on.
Yes, right.
After all, we were under siege.
Right. Do you remember where you were when you heard about Pearl Harbor?
Yeah. In bed. Sunday morning. December 7th.
How did you hear about it?
Radio.
On the radio, okay.
Yeah, we
What
didn't have television.
Yes, right. What was your reaction when you heard about it?
Well, keep in mind, I was probably 15 or 16. How much reaction do you expect out of a fellow that age? I was, well, I could use a full other word, but I wouldn't here. But I was mad, and I'm still mad about it. I'm still mad about it. With all the things that we do for those nice people, and they complain because we put them in a storage camp for a couple of months. They were the ones that attacked us. We didn't attack them.
Okay, now, why did you pick the Navy to enlist?
Probably, see, this is wartime, as you know,
Yes.
and the various services were just like the other day. Each one competing with another one. The Navy would come and stop at the high school and speak to the seniors. Then the Coast Guard would come to the high school and speak to the seniors. And then this was the U.S. Naval Air Force. The Navy had an Air Force in those days, so did the Army. So it was the Air Force that I joined because one of the guys came from the U.S. Naval Air Force, came in Air Force Reserve. Came to high school, they had, the principal would call what do you call it? Everybody gets together, an assembly, and you listen to the guy for whatever it was, half an hour or so forth. So I spent all of them, and his pitch made more sense to me than others. Now, I'm not, I remember I may have mentioned there were three of us. And we had seen this guy's pitch maybe 6 months before, maybe, I don't know when. But you see him about once a month. Because we were young, we were seniors, and we were on our way to war.
Okay. When did you go into the Navy? Do you recall? The year and month?
Oh, yeah. January, I think the 20th, I'm not sure about that. The 20th was January of my senior year.
Okay, what year was that?
I don't know, it was 41 or 42. When was Pearl Harbor?
41.
Well, it was
December
42.
of
Then it was
41.
42 then. Yeah,
Yeah,
December,
okay.
and I joined 2 months later.
Okay. All right, where did you go for basic training? Well, you went into the V5 program.
V5, right. They put us in with the V12ers. V12 was the guys like Johnny Carson and Jack Lemmon and a bunch of other people that we know. They all gravitated to that. V12ers were just officers training. We called it ROTC, our Reserve Officers Training Course. We were in there for a period of time. Then we went to flight school, well, pre-flight school and then flight school.
Where did you go for this program?
Harvard University,
Harvard, okay.
Cambridge. I was about 25 miles away from my home.
How long were you in the program?
About 8 years. But I was released to inactive duty after a couple of years in the fall of, what did we say, 42, so it would have been 45 probably.
Okay. Where did you go after Harvard?
Well, a lot of places. Floyd Bennett Field, Brooklyn, New York, Meacham Field, Fort Worth, Texas. I had a mental block, but the pre-flight school, I can't think, it was in North Carolina, maybe you can help me out. It's Chapel Hill, that's it.
Okay.
Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and then down for Pensacola. And by that time, we'd let the Japs have the second of the two bombs. So that meant that virtually all of our instructors were what we call fleet men. In other words, they'd been in the fleet. They'd served their time. They could have come out on points, but we were still at war. So the minute we dropped the second bomb, all of our instructors were mustered out. And then there was nothing for us to do, nobody to take care of us, so they sent us to Norfolk, Virginia, and we were released to inactive duty, and that's the terminology that was used. And I come home, got married, had a family. 7 or 8 years later, I got my honorable discharge.
How did you feel when you heard about the dropping of the atomic bombs?
Didn't know anything about it. Didn't know what it was. Well,
yeah,
we read about it, heard
Yes,
about
yes,
it, we
but-
told about it, and I feel like we accepted it. When you're in the service, the Navy, the Army, what have you, I don't know about you, but we accepted what was given to us. We had no feelings.
How did you feel when you heard about the end of the war?
Well, I don't remember that there was an end to the war.
Well,
I don't recall.
okay.
I don't recall. The fact that I'm still fighting the war.
Did you have any feelings at all when you heard about the death of President Roosevelt?
Oh yeah, but that was earlier. That was a year and a half, 2 years earlier than what we're talking about.
Yes, yes.
He died when 1940, 41?
45.
45, Roosevelt.
45?
Yeah, just before the end of the war.
Well, all right. I was still in Harvard. You asked me how I felt. I remember where I was. I was in Harvard University in Cambridge when he died. It was in April.
Now
But
you
I
mentioned,
didn't remember the year.
yeah. Now you mentioned here that you developed a friendship with Jack Lemmon.
No, I didn't mention I had developed a friend. Well, I
What's
did
it
have, but I
written
didn't.
here?
I said there were fellows in
Oh,
there like
fellows.
Jack
Oh.
Lemmon and Johnny Carson and as a whole list of. I did develop a friendship with Jackie Lemmon, yes, but it wasn't a close personal friendship.
right.
It was, hi, how are you? And for the length of time that we were together, we were, together. He knew my name, I knew his name, but he wouldn't, because he's passed away now.
Yeah, yeah. Now you said that one of the experiences you remember was being hospitalized for the mumps. Did you tell us about
I didn't
that?
tell you that. It must be somebody else.
Well, you wrote it down.
Well, it's hardly worth remembering. Almost every male on the planet has had the mumps at one time or another. So it was brought up the other day when I talked to the other interviewer, but the mumps, I guess, is something that...
Well, something about you sneaking out to go to a regimental ball.
The adult male, I guess, is one of the things he has to avoid, for procreation purposes at least, is the mumps. And I was one of those people, and we were put into sick bay, yes. Navy had another term for sick bay. And there was a high-ranked officer in charge of sick bay, so we developed kind of a friendship, and as you probably have noticed already by subtracting, I was only about 25 miles away from home when I had my fiancée at home, and I tried to get home weekends when I could. This particular weekend coming up was the regimental ball. It was for all of the naval forces in and around Harvard Square, and there were a lot of them. And my girlfriend was going to come to the regimental ball with me, and I was not supposed to leave the hospital. That's where you got the sneaking out bit. I did. I snuck out, and I took the L on the trams, or whatever they called it back then, out to Brocton and ultimately to Woodland, Mass, and then back in with my, at that time, girlfriend. And when you got to the regimental ball, of course, it still was naval controlled, and the guard, the guard duty was in fact Jackie Lemmon. So we talked, introduced Jackie Lemmon to my then girlfriend. She's now she's passed on now. And that's all it was. I didn't really sneak out, but I did sneak out. Snuck my girl back in, and Jackie Lemmon made it possible for me to do it because I was supposed to be in my bed. But he had the guard duty.
Okay. Are there any other stories you remember while your time?
Oh, a lot of them, but you don't want to hear any of them.
Tell us about one or two of them that you think might be interesting.
Well, I don't think it'd be interesting to anybody else. I mean, I was just another guy at the time. I was 15, 16, 17 years old, 18 years old. We caught up in the war effort. My mother and dad were both in war work. My girlfriend was in school, business school, college, and everywhere I went there's at least a couple of stories, but you don't want to hear them. I've got to see a good part of the country.
Did you ever get to go to any USO shows?
Yes, but not the one you're thinking of. I never saw.
Bob Hope.
Well, I never saw Bob Hope. Of course, he was overseas anyway, as he should have been. There's no question.
Yeah.
No, there was a lot of time. Wherever we went, the people were very, very, very courteous and very friendly. Probably the pleasantest people in the world then were in Fort Worth, Texas. We were up on the Eagle Mountain where there was an airstrip there, and our sole duty at the time, in addition to learning a little bit about aircraft, was to care for the planes being ferried in from the West Coast to the East Coast and vice versa and back again. And we met a lot of people in, but there wasn't very much of us. There was maybe 30, 40, or 50 at the most of us sailors there. We called ourselves swab jockeys. And we just about controlled Fort Worth. They just loved us. Everybody, the first day we got there, we were out in an auto court. Navy had taken over an auto, we had no barracks. They took over an auto court, they pulled all the beds out and they put in bunks, metal bunks. So we got there and took a shower and cleaned up, went out on the sidewalk Dallas was that way and Fort Worth was that way, so we would vacillate back and forth to see which way we wanted to go. There was four of us. Finally, a powder blue Buick. There wasn't a lot of cars on the road because there was gas rationing then, and Buicks took a lot of gas too. This powder blue Buick pulled up, four of us got in and the guy. He found out who we were, where we were from and so forth, and he really was a delightful man. Took us, where you going? He'd asked us, so we didn't know where we were going, so we drove us right up to the Hotel Texas, which was the only one, I guess, in Fort Worth. And the doorman come out as if he was going to park his car. He knew him, we called him by name, I forget his name now. But he says, take these four men and give them a nice seat and the show and give them whatever they want for dinner. Put it on my bill. Guy saluted him and away he went. That was my first impression of Texas, and it's been that good ever since. The Texas people are all right to me. Now, the converse to that is Dallas. We went into Dallas and we found out, and there's a four-letter word, I guess, but nobody wants to hear that one, but nobody in Dallas liked soldiers. And Dallas was loaded with thousands and thousands and thousands of sailors, of soldiers in Dallas. And everywhere they went, they were just dumped on. People spat upon them. They couldn't get a good seat in the bar. They couldn't get a good seat in the restaurant. They didn't like the soldiers. And the reason for it was just the reverse of us. We were only a few of us sailors, and everybody loved us. Mm-hmm. In Dallas was the same thing, but when we got mustered out in Virginia, I told you the name earlier, look back earlier, I can't think of it, but in Virginia, we were mustered out. That was the worst place I have ever been in my life, and that was all sailors, always way back to the days of the Mayflower. Pardon?
Was it Norfolk?
Norfolk, right, thank you. Norfolk, Virginia. And we were never treated, sailors as a group, myself individually perhaps, but as a group, we were never treated worse by our own people than we were in Norfolk, Virginia. I've been there a couple of times, but I go through it quickly. I don't even stop. That was terrible. There was a difference in cities. Both, I would guess, about the same size between Fort Worth and Norfolk. But Norfolk was now, on the other hand, a soldier in Norfolk, he was treated royally. Same reasons.
When were you discharged?
I don't remember. It was about, what are we talking about? Going in about 41. I was discharged about 49 or something like that. As I recall, I had about 8 years of government service, but they they only paid me for the first couple of years.
After you got out, did you ever make use of the GI Bill?
Not really. I had a couple of attempts at it, but no.
Did
By that time, I was married when I got out.
you use the 5220 club at all?
I remember the terminology.
It
What was it?
$20 a week for 52 weeks. It was like an unemployment insurance.
Oh, no, I would not. No, I would never. I tell you what I did make use of. Bought a house. The government guaranteed the first $4,000 of the mortgage. Guaranteed it. And if I paid it all on time for the first year, they would write me a check for 4%, but that's what it was, 4% mortgage. Write me a check for 4% of the first $4,000. That was a gift. That was the nicest and the only thing that I can recall that the government's done for me in terms of money.
Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
Oh, yeah. I've lived all over the Northeast, and not every time, but I've been in, the VFW and the Legion and this and that. Several. I never was active. That's probably what you're leading up to. Yeah. Never was active in any of them.
Did you ever stay in contact with anyone that was in service with you?
No. I think about several of them. Not frequently, but occasionally. Two of the guys I met with within the first couple of years, within the first year and a half. But it didn't. We had our things to do, and they had their things to do, and we did not. One was in Arlington, Massachusetts, one was in Buffalo, New York.
Well, how do you think your time in the service, do you think it changed or had an effect on your life at all?
Oh, of course, it had an effect on my life. I don't know why, because I can't predict what it would have been. But yeah, sure, of course, it had a profound effect on my life.
Could you give an example?
No, I can't, because I don't know what it would have been like if I hadn't gone to service. I tell you this, I'd hate to have been a stay-at-home, I'll tell you that, because feelings were very high in those days, very high. People that got the Kennedy family lived not too far from me, and not a one of them served 20 minutes, you see, so there was a difference in what went on in those days. The politicians, they got their family out. They didn't have to go to war.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your interview.
You're welcome.
Okay.